Well, hello, Bumblebees. Thank you so much for being here on my channel today and my podcast, my Cafecito with Vivi. I am your host, Vivi, and I have a surprise for you today. I have my friend with me, Rachel, that she's just gonna talk to us a little bit about what she does. She's actually an amazing person. I think highly of her, and her career is actually in director of operations for real estate, and she has really good things that she's gonna show us. She's gonna talk to us today. So thank you, Rachel, for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. I am really happy that you're here. Really excited. This is something that I've been looking forward for a while. And when we were talking the other day, and you told me about your business, I'm like, okay, I need to get this girl on my podcast.
That's
So
awesome. I
tell us
appreciate it.
a little bit about you, how you started, like what is it that you do, etc. Something about you.
So, I'm kind of in a season of my life right now where I'm very honed in and focused on my career. So, I do have hobbies that I enjoy doing. I do like art. I'm passionate about fitness. But I found that very recently I've been very much like honed into my craft, trying to expand my business, make plans for the future, my current career that I'm in, my full-time job, trying to expand that as well. So it's been super crazy, but outside of that, I have enjoyed a lot of travel and I am planning on doing like more traveling in the future. So that's just a little bit about me personally.
Awesome, outstanding, yeah. So I know that when we were talking, and you told me that you are a director of operations for real estate. So tell us a little bit about your journey on as a director of operations on real estate, and what are the experiences that have shaped your career?
So I started in real estate about 3.5 years ago. It was in the later part of 2020, which we all know was a very crazy year. Prior to that, I had been doing banking and babysitting and a bunch of random other things, but I wasn't like honed into a career path. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do really. And I had a friend who was in real estate and they were looking for someone to do administrative work. And I really had no idea what it would involve. But I joke that it's the career that I never knew I wanted. It was just kind of just happened. It was a God thing. He just kind of set everything up and then it just happened. And I was like, wow, okay, this is cool. So, going through basically starting a team from the ground up where it was just me and one agent, and then we had a couple other agents join. We saw a lot of fluctuation in the type of systems that were needed for one person versus three people. Because suddenly you're bringing on more clients, and then you have to have systems so that it all stays in place. So it really, I would say it really was important to have a lot of adaptability and have a lot of creativity and a lot of open communication between the team to make sure that everyone's needs were being met. So just kind of having like a humble approach to it of being like, okay, here's what this is right now, but we can make this better. It doesn't have to stay this way. We can fix this if we need it to be better. And just kind of having a very open mind concept when approaching it, I would say is a very like key factor and kind of what's shaped me through this role.
Great, great, amazing. Yeah, and I actually really like the way you said how things got, the pieces got together and how you got here. I'm really I have a really holistic approach in turns into finance, because I guess I touch a lot into faith and spirituality, of course, and I'm a Christian woman, so I cannot touch a lot into that and the faith. And I really think that what you said is completely true. When that is the right path for you, definitely things set up like that. So in a typical day, as a director of operation, how does it look like? Could you give us some your primary responsibilities, for example?
Yeah, so So depending on your role and how big your team is, some director of operations in real estate operate on a fully operational level, and then some of them might operate as something called a transaction coordinator as well. The transaction coordinator makes sure every detail of the transaction gets done, right? So depending on how big the team is that you work for, you might be doing one or you might be doing both. In my experience, I was doing both for the first company I worked with. So the day-to-day pretty much looked like managing files, keeping up with clients, making sure if things, came up before closing, any fires started, we were putting those things out, making sure the clients were okay. And then as far as like the operation side of it, really tracking our numbers was super important because we realized, especially with real estate agents, they're very they have to be driven, very goal driven, right? And so it really helps to have the numbers for them. So when you're showing them like, hey, in this month we did this many sales and it's really high or really low, it motivates them, especially if you compare like, hey, first quarter we did this, second quarter we did this, and there's a big difference. It'll kind of light a fire to be like, yeah, let's do more, let's do better. So they're very goal oriented. So you want to do a lot of things to empower them. You want to do a lot of things to motivate them. And one of the biggest things I found is just doing those updates. Hey, here's what we completed this week. Hey, here's how many closed this week. Because they have to do so much to keep business going that they need to see the fruits of their efforts to inspire them to keep going. So that is a big part of being a director of operations as well, is not only just creating systems, but also making sure like you're cheering your team on to continue to bring in, more clients and more closings and change people's lives.
Wow, numbers. You said numbers, and I'm like, oh, that's sexy. It brought up my eyes. I love
Have
talking
you,
about
there's this
yeah.
mug I saw on Facebook the other day and it has Excel, the Excel logo, and it says freaking the sheets. And I thought, I was like, this is perfect.
Most definitely. I always said I don't know why some people find doing budget and stuff like that. Well, I don't call it budget anymore. I went through a workshop and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I need to change the way I talk. So I call it a lifestyle plan because I'm like promoting the lifestyle that I want in my numbers, right? So yeah, I completely agree with you on the numbers to be right and to be correct. Oh my gosh, that's for me like the key. So how's the real estate industry evolved during your time that you've been working here, and how those changes have impact in your role?
That's what's super interesting is I feel like when I got into real estate, we went through like the highest highs and the lowest lows. Typically, the kind of market it's almost like we experienced like 10 years in the market within 3 years because of the shifts that happened. We had super low inventory, a lot of buyers, more buyers than there were houses back in 2020 to 2021. So it was like listings all day. And then if you had a buyer, it was like, okay, we're frantically putting in multiple offers. So yeah, like that was that year. And then we get to the end of 2022 and through 2023, and it was a lot more quiet. Interest rates were higher, people were hesitant to buy. And so I feel like just in my small amount of time, I would consider it small. It's been 3.5 years. I've seen almost like 10 years worth of market history all shoved into 3 years, and it's been super interesting. But I would say what it has done is it's taught me to really stay in touch with the agents about like what's going on and how that's impacting them, right? So if we're looking at a market where people are afraid to buy and people are hesitant to do things, becoming like a form of a foundation of education for them, like, hey, yes, these interest rates are high, but did you also know that some lenders are offering this, this, and this? Like a lot of people don't know, and they do rely on their real estate agent and their real estate team to educate them about the market and empower them through it. So just using it as an opportunity of, hey, times do look uncertain right now and things are a little scary, but I mean, what is fear? Fear is usually it's the unknown. So using our companies and our times as a way to educate others and show them, hey, it's really not that bad. That's been very empowering as well.
Wow, amazing. I am really like tuning in a lot of the words that you are saying, because definitely it's also my mission to empower individuals and couples through education about finances. And I'm like, oh yeah, education, empowerment, you know, not having fear, like turning into faith. That's one of my biggest too. I'm like, oh, you're mentioning all those sexy words for me.
Well, it's so important to you know, dig into things and to learn. And there's that saying, knowledge and power. But I have like a second thing to that, and that is the application of that knowledge is power. Because you can learn, you can read all these books, you can do all these things, and it can just sit there and you can go forget it, or you can start implementing it and practicing it. And I feel like that's just so important to do, even if you can take, we call it like like an aha moment when you discover something. But even if you read 5 pages of a book a day, but you're able to get one golden nugget or one aha from it, that's much better than like, oh, I read 2 books this week. It's like, okay, but what did you learn? It's much better sometimes to almost get microscopic with it and like, what can I learn from these 5 pages or this one chapter? What can I start implementing today? Because you'll just get much more out of it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And you know what? I also like the perspective of touching into topics or as a beginner perspective. So you can have like your mind is more amplified to capture knowledge as well. Because sometimes when we approach with them, I know this, I know that,
The
we
pride.
might close ourselves from something new that we might learn because we can watch the same video 3 times and the 3 times learn something different from that video. So yeah, I
That's
mean,
so true. And to add on to that as well, I think everyone having different perspectives, that's why it's so important that even if like you read a book and another person read the same book, talk to them about what they saw, because different perspectives will show you different things and you'll learn more.
exactly. Yeah, totally. So jumping a little bit again to the team management, and I know you spoke a little bit about it, but managing a diverse team is crucial. I'm pretty sure. I mean, you already mentioned it for the real estate operations. So how do you foster effective communication and the teamwork in your role?
So this one is interesting because every team culture is different. I've officially worked with 2 different real estate teams, and both are completely different in culture. So I think it's super important whenever you're starting in a role, whoever that lead agent is or whoever the lead manager is, because as a director of operations, you're usually facilitating the lead agent and then, you know, all the other agents, right? But it's super important to sit down with that lead agent and be like, what is our culture? What are we trying to foster here? What is the message we're trying to give out to clients? And what are the messages you're trying to give out to your fellow agents? And really honing in on that. And once you have an understanding of the values and the cultures that you have, at that point, it's your job to embody it, and it's your job to show, even in difficult situations, how we're going to maintain those core values. Because a lot of people in real estate, they get into real estate because they want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to be on the clock anymore. They don't want to be doing what everyone else is telling them to do. They want to be their own person. They want to work for themselves. They want to be professionals. And so you need to basically like harvest that desire that they have to be the professional, to be like, hey, remember, this is the standard because we are professionals. These are our core values as professionals, and bringing it back to that standard. So, you know, there have been times where we're kind of off as a team, or the communication isn't there. We'll kind of notice there's maybe some tension there, and we'll just honestly have like a sit down and air it out moment. We'll be like, okay, what's going on here? How are you feeling about this? And not taking things personally, but taking it professionally. Because at the end of the day, we're not here to make it all about ourselves. We're here to help others. We're here to help this person get into this home, help this person with their real estate goals, help this investment team make the investments they're wanting to make for this year. And we have to really bring it back to that standard that it's not personal, it's professional.
Wow, I really hope that our listeners start taking some nuggets in there because I'm taking a lot of nuggets in here. So, talking about technology integration, how has the integration of technology affected real estate operations, and what tools do you find most valuable?
So I feel like this is interesting for me to answer, just because since I've been in real estate, it has been heavily technology based, but I do know a time where it wasn't, right? I'm just not super familiar with that. So for me, the real estate world with technology has just, I was like, how was it any other way? You know, we use e-signatures so people can sign things online. And you think that, you know, 15 years ago, people had to go hand deliver documents to go sign with someone. So it led to longer wait times. It led to, okay, it's taking 2 days to get a contract executed instead of, 2 hours. So there's a major difference. I think the speed, technology has definitely sped up a lot of transactions for sure. Absolutely. And then as far as the tools that I find most valuable, I love Trello. Trello is like, if someone told me you can only use one type of tool or system, you have to pick one. Trello would be the biggest one, because even though there are other ones that we need, it keeps me on track. It's super organized. And for a role as a director of operations, you have to be organized, because your agents are out, they're showing, they're trying to, sell this person on this and do that, and they're everywhere. It's very easy for them to be scattered, because what they have to do is very scattering. So they rely on you to be like a central fixed point that knows everything. That's the database that can go find something quickly. And if all of your stuff is everywhere, you're not helping them. And it's very interesting, because I have a lot of people tell me like, oh, you're very organized, right? And I'll tell them, it's like, this isn't just like a character thing that you're just born with, right? Anyone can be organized. It's a discipline. It's not something that's, just for a Pisces or just for, a Scorpio, or it's not like, oh, because you're a certain zodiac, you can't do this. Like, no, it's a discipline and it's a skill, and most people can build it. It's just up to if you decide you want to be like disciplined with it or not. So I would say if you're considering being a director of operations, know that it's something that does involve you to be highly organized, but it is something that you can achieve, because it is a skill at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And well, with the last company that you were working with, I was a client, and I think I mentioned to you that you were the only ones that I have worked so far. I mean, not like I have purchased a lot of real estate properties or whatever, right? But so far, between the first home that I purchased, the second one that I purchased, and the selling of the first one, you guys were the only ones that used technology to the point that I didn't have to move nothing, go nowhere, didn't have to expect nobody coming to my house to sign documents. Like everything was online, like everything I did it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I really, really like it that way. But I know that I'm pretty sure there's still people that are not very familiar or not comfortable with it. So,
Sure.
yeah. So, what about client relationships? Building and maintaining the client relationship, I'm pretty sure it's very essential for real estate. What strategies do you employ to ensure the client is satisfied and is loyal as well?
So this does go back to being organized, because depending on what kind of volume you're doing, this can either be super easy and fun, or it can be really, really hard and still fun, because I like maintaining relationships. So I don't see it as like this obnoxious thing at all. But it can be more complicated if you're handling high volume. So the first team I worked with, it was lower volume, just we did a good amount of sales, but it wasn't like super high pressure or intensity. And the current role I have, I am currently managing like anywhere between 50 and 60 at a time, right? And these are all people that they're buying houses, they're selling, they have questions, right? And so honestly, staying organized, it goes back to that. Like, I notate everything. If something has to happen, I set a reminder. That reminder is somewhere, because I made a decision a long time ago. I was not going to rely on my own brain to remind me of things. If I have to pick anything up from the store, it's getting written down. If I need to make sure that I do something at my house, put my laundry in the dryer, I set an alarm to remind me, or that's going to sit in the washing machine. Like, I have basically like trained myself to be like, you are not going to remember if you don't write it down, or if you don't put some kind of follow up there. It just simply won't happen. And when it comes to people's lives and their houses and their real estate goals, you don't want to forget anything. Like, you don't want to be the reason that they get screwed over. So really just going back to like setting reminders for everything, making notes about everything. If they have a very special situation, I know we had a client where her husband had always, managed everything when it came to buying and selling a house. So he always took care of everything. And then he passed, and then she was trying to buy home. She's like, I've never done any of this by myself. So she was like really overwhelmed. So she had a lot of questions, and she's like, I'm sorry, I have so many questions. I'm like, don't apologize. That's literally why we're here. And so she had a lot of concerns. So I wrote down every concern. If some of them were time related, I would set a reminder for it. So really just, it goes back to being organized. And it comes really just down to having compassion. Like you have to genuinely care. So if you're not a people person, if you're one of those where you're like, if they have a problem, I don't really care, I wouldn't recommend getting into the client relations part of it, because it's super important to have that compassion as well. But it's very rewarding, because I've had people that they literally told me, because things went haywire with the seller, and it was a buyer, they were like, I don't want to close, like I don't even want to go to closing, we talked them off the ledge, and we were kind of like, hey, okay, but here's what happens if you don't close, and that's probably going to be worse. And they're like, okay, but I'm not going to closing unless Rachel's going. And so it goes to show, had we not been as invested in their journey, they probably would have canceled, and it would have been worse for them, because they would have lost a lot of money. So had I not been as invested and a part of them, and reaching out to them and setting that reminder to, hey, follow up with so and so to, give them this information, we might have lost that sale. So it's super important to stay connected.
Yeah. That is honestly, I feel that that is a beautiful thing that you do, because
Thank
I
you.
really think that caring about people is important, and and yeah, I'm not gonna say that I'm a people person. Sometimes I feel that I'm not, but I always try to resonate, or to be to have empathy for people. But there are times that I need to take a break, step back, and okay, I need my me time. I mean my alone time, so I can recharge and then come back to provide that service. Because yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing when you serve people, and it's amazing what you do. So thank you for that. What about the market trends in your point of view? What current trends in the real estate market are you finding most interesting or impactful in your current position as a director of operations?
So definitely, like as far as trends, real estate and marketing has shifted very heavily to social media. Whereas back in the day, there was more door knocking, attending public events, things like that. We do see a lot of marketing that's based on social media, and just being what's the word, being trendy as far as that aspect, being putting memes, putting this, like being a constant presence online. Because it's interesting, like even though a company can be really successful, if their social media page is dead, most people will be like, oh, I don't know them, like this is scary to me. Like most people won't. And we're walking into a generation of a lot of people who are now purchasing homes that do a lot of research through social media. There are a lot of people, when they're choosing to move to a new city or a new state, they'll go on YouTube and they'll type in, life in San Antonio, life in New Braunfels, life in Dallas, and they'll watch people's vlogs. And it's super interesting because, at a point a long time ago, people would, visit, or they would have a friend there and ask them how it is. And now we have a way of being more into the culture, right? Like you can see what the culture is like by watching a vlog. You can follow someone on Instagram and look at their daily life and see the kind of places they're going to. It gives you more of an inside look. So we've definitely shifted a lot of marketing into social media. Even, in my current job, we're working on currently a YouTube series of just like life in San Antonio. Like, hey, here's a day at Fiesta, Texas. Hey, here's a day bar hopping. Here's a day of taking your kids out to this place. Like, honestly, it's very interesting to see how that's changed, and how the current generation that's purchasing, like how they investigate what they want to do with their real estate goals.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to tag myself along in that bar hopping part.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Just to remember
We go
the old
together.
Okay, I'm projecting myself here. Okay, so what advice would you give to the to individuals that are aspiring to pursue a career on what you do as a director of operations?
So advice I would give, honestly, I could be here, like we could just have an entire podcast based on this, just because there's so many like crazy things that have happened that I'm like, I've taken mental notes, and I've learned, like since I started in real estate to now, I wouldn't say like I'm a completely different person, but I am much more different. I am much more confident. I'm much more sure. I'm much more tied into my values. Like if you were to ask me 5 years ago, what are your values? I would be like, That's such an odd question. How do I format that into like, you know what I mean? It's very different, right? So it allows you to do a lot of self-discovery and it puts you in a lot of positions of pressure where it really pushes you to develop yourself. There's a lot of accountability because especially again, depending on what kind of size team you work on, if it's a small team, there's a high level of accountability because what you're not doing, it shows very quickly because there's not a lot of people to blame. You're going to start to realize, oh, it's me. I'm the problem, right? So I would just say, as far as advice, be trainable. I don't even care how long you are, if you're in director of operations now already and you've been in it for 20 years, way before me, be trainable. Like it's so important to just keep an open mind. And like I said, kind of at the beginning of this thing, there are times where, you know, I've built a system and it just had to change because it was obsolete or we found something better or we brought on someone that needed something different. And it opened to my eyes of like, wow, this is really short-sighted, right? So just keep that humility, but at the same time, know your worth. It is super important to know your worth because you will get into business with certain people, whether that's the team you're directly working with or the other side of a transaction that will try to throw you around. And it is super important to remember your values as a professional.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You mentioned that that you cannot blame anybody by yourself. And I remember that that meme that was running around with Selena Gomez when she was in Wizard of the Wizards when she was something
Oh
with
yeah, Wizards of Waverly Place. Yeah.
yes, that one. And then she said, you know, how the girl is like super irresponsible and what? You tell me that I have to take responsibility for my own actions? Well, that's not
Yes.
fair.
That's not fair at all. But it's actually so freeing, and I think that's what's so interesting is, when you operate at a very low level of accountability, it's very overwhelming to suddenly be held accountable to something. It's very overwhelming, and then to a point, it also makes you doubt yourself a lot. And it's interesting because when I transitioned teams at the beginning of last year, it was a like I said, it was a higher volume team. There was a lot more going on, and I doubted myself, and I was like, "Am I good enough?" Because I was over here doing maybe 2 or 3 transactions a month. Now we're over here doing 50 to 60. Like I did question myself, and I was like, "Am I good enough for this?" And I think in that moment, I had to tell myself, if even if I'm not right now, this is an opportunity for me to be who I need to be. So just because maybe you don't think you're at where you need to be right now to be successful, don't act like you're going to stay there. Don't act like that's your limit and you can't go past that. The only person that decides that is you. So even if you're in that moment, man, I don't think I'm good enough for this. It's like, hey, maybe you're not, but you have the opportunity to be. So step into it.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, I love it. So follow up for this same question. I know that you are offering a class or training, personal training to people that would like to do what you do. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I actually offer 2 different types of training programs. So for people that are looking to get into transaction coordination, which as I was saying a little bit earlier, they don't do the operation sides of things. They don't create systems. They're mostly responsible for just, you know, handling a contract with the client and making sure it gets to closing. Um, I do offer a training for that. It's not very involved. It can be in person or it can be over Zoom. I would just send you materials. But it would get you to a point where you are able to go ahead and pick up clients and start going contract to close. And then I offer another program, which is for a director of operations. It includes transaction coordination, since as I said, most of the time that will be a part of your role as a director of operations. And then it also goes into, hey, here are systems and things that you will need, because as operations manager, you are going to have to create systems. You are going to have to make sure that, you know, you're doing things to help the team flow well. So those are 2 things that I offer. Again, they can be in person or over Zoom. I have had 2 clients already that I have trained that are still in their director of operations roles and can provide testimonials. If you guys, you know, ever want to just make sure I'm not making anything up. She is my first one, super proud of her. Like she has done super well. She stayed with the same company. She loves her job. She's grown them so much and their profit margins. It's amazing. And it's such a beautiful thing to see people grow in that way. So yeah, my business is called Superior Transactions. And I don't have like an official, I do have like a Facebook page, but to be honest, it's easier to just reach me on like Instagram.
Perfect. So, of course, I'm gonna take those notes from you. I still gonna take your Facebook page so I can have it on the notes for this podcast, your Instagram as well, so they can contact you, and your email as well, just in case
Yes.
that they can contact you, because I really think that there are some people. I have always said to my clients and the current membership that I have, and I think have mentioned also on my social media, but definitely in the membership I mention it, that when you're searching for money, like you're working just because you want to pay the bills, it's really not gonna fill your higher purpose in life. And maybe this career is someone's higher purpose. And when you're feeling that, the money is just coming along. It's just like the icing on the cake. And you're not gonna feel like you're working so hard for money, or you stop doing that mentality. And that's when the flow, because really the source of your money is not your clients, it's not your employee, it's not the government or anything. Really, the source God. So God is the one that sends the blessings, because it puts you in a position that you have a purpose to fill in this life. So yeah, definitely, that's why I brought you here. So maybe there's someone out there that don't know what they want to do in their life, and maybe this is something that they can light up for. um so on my next question, looking forward to the future, where do you see yourself, your biggest opportunities or shifts in the real estate, and how are you preparing for them?
So it definitely ties back into what I was saying earlier about just what a crazy market we've had in the past few years. To prepare, I think, is to always ask yourself what you're doing, how it can be better. So even if you've developed like a super sweet tight system, asking yourself, but how can this be better? How can I make this, expanded? How can I make this effective or make sense to maybe someone else who I'm going to hire in the future, right? Because a lot of the things that I'm doing right now, we are trying to bring on more people and effectively, grow a bigger team administratively. And so a lot of times I have to ask myself, well, I'm working on something, okay, this makes sense, but is it just making sense to me? If I was training someone right next to me who is all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and brand new to real estate, would this make sense to them? And then going and kind of refining it through there. So I don't think anything can ever be too refined. I think looking to the future, you always have to have the mentality that whatever you have, it can always be better. Always validate your efforts. And I'm not saying that to a point of like nothing's ever good enough. You should just, whatever you're doing, just it's never going to be good. Not that way at all. Definitely validate your efforts, validate the systems you creative, but just keep an open mind of how it could be better.
Perfect, awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this podcast before we give the goodbye and the closing?
I would like to thank God. I would like to thank God for bringing me and Vivi together. Her and I have been super good friends for it's been like what, 4 or 5 years now, something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Like, yeah,
Yeah, we
because
met through our sons. Our sons are best friends, and she's been a wonderful friend in my life. And as she shared with you, she became a client at one point, and now we're doing this together, and it's just been a wonderful thing. I'm super thankful for God bringing us together, and if there's anyone that this can bless, I'm like super grateful for that. That would just make my day.
oh, thank you so much. I feel the same way, Rachel. Like, I really think that you were placed in my life for a purpose, and every day I just find a new ways to say this is the purpose. Like, it's something new every single time that we have a conversation, or like we're
Yeah,
texting. And sometimes we don't text because I know you're busy and I'm busy, and we
yeah.
text so long for
Go
text.
like days or weeks.
Yes.
Like, hi friend.
Hey, I haven't texted you. Like, how you doing? But I mean, I really think that we both understand each other very much, and really we don't break that chain, and I'm super grateful for that. And thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you
Yes,
for
thank
bringing this.
you.
Thank you for bringing this information. I really, it's really my intention that someone is gonna receive this message, and it's gonna light up in their lives to find a purpose for their lives, because at the end, I think that is my higher purpose, to guide people into their purpose. I know it's just
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it sounds a little crazy that way, but I just feel that is the way. But thank you so much for being here, and I'm gonna take your information, your links and everything, so I can put it on the notes. And everybody, thank you so much for being here. Once again, thank you for this opportunity to bring this information. And don't forget to subscribe, to follow, give me your comments, give me what is it that you think about this podcast? Do you think that you would like to receive some more information? Of course, let me know all the time. You can reach me at hello@mindfultasksacademy.com, send me an email, or shoot me on my social media, which also is going to be on the notes for this podcast. And just remember, it's a vivid thing you wouldn't understand.